On May 26th of 1990, 40-year-old Marlene Warren was at home with her 20-year-old son and a few of his friends. It was a Saturday morning and they were having breakfast when someone rang the doorbell. Standing on her porch was a clown, wearing an orange wig and a bright red nose. The clown had a special delivery for Marlene. They were carrying balloons and presents, which Marlene accepted intrigued. But just as she was opening her mysterious gifts, the clown pulled out a gun and shot Marlene in the face. Her son and friends, who were watching the mysterious guest from inside the house, ran for help out the back door, while the clown got into a car and drove away. Emergency services arrived within minutes, but it was too late to save Marlene. Marlene Warren was a friendly woman. Although she wasn't close with her neighbors, she always had a smile and a polite hello for everyone. Marlene was 40 years old and lived with her husband Michael Warren and their son Joe. The family lived in Wellington, in Palm Beach County, Florida. It was a wealthy area, where people in the community frequented golf courses and social events. However, the Warrens didn't move within those circles. They owned a used car business in West Palm Beach, which didn't quite fit the social standards of their neighbors. Regardless, they were financially stable and seemed to be just like any other family from the area. However, behind closed doors, things weren't as stable as they looked like from the outside. In their nearly 20 years of marriage, Marlene and Michael had grown apart, and the fights between them were frequent. However, divorce was off the table, since Marlene would get 50% of the couple's assets. She didn't want to go into a divorce with Michael, because she was scared of him. Her family recalls how one day Marlene told them, if anything ever happened to her, Michael was the one to look for. So obviously, when a killer dressed up in a clown costume turned up at her door and shot her twice, police first questioned Michael. That morning, while Marlene and Joe were having breakfast at home, Michael had an alibi. He was on his way to the racetrack, miles away from the family home. When his story checked out, investigators moved on to finding the clown. It was the month of May, not a popular month for buying costumes like October would be, so police asked around and tried to locate the specific costume, which was described to them by Joe, Marlene's son, and his friends, who all saw the killer that morning. After asking in local shops, they found just what they were looking for. 2 store employees remember a woman asking about a clown costume and buying an orange wig to go along with it just days before the murder. The flowers and balloons also gave investigators a lead. One of the balloons had a message that read, "You're the greatest," in a very specific style that was only sold at a local supermarket. Employees at the store remember a woman buying the balloons and flowers just 1 hour before the murder on the morning of May 26th. After getting the description from the costume shop and supermarket employees, police found a woman in the Warren circle who matched the witness testimonies. Her name was Sheila Keen, and she was allegedly having an affair with Michael. Sheila worked for Michael at the used car dealership. She was in charge of repossessing cars, and several employees at the dealership told police they'd seen them kissing in the office. Upon further investigation, police discovered that Michael was paying for an apartment Sheila lived in, and he was over there so often that the neighbors thought he and Sheila were a couple. The two always denied being in a relationship, and Sheila said the day of the murder she was working, repossessing a car, and knew nothing about who had murdered Marlene. The killer clown had escaped in a white convertible, and the vehicle was soon found abandoned in a parking lot. After running the plates, they discovered the car belonged to a rental company who had reported it stolen over a month before the murder. Apparently, the couple who last rented it had tried to return it after office hours. When they found no employees on the premises, they called a number they found in the yellow pages, thinking they were speaking to the company they rented the car from. A man told them to leave the car and the keys in front of the lot, and he'd send someone over to collect it. The couple did as they were told, but the company never received the car, and it was reported stolen. The phone number of the rental car business in the yellow pages was located very close to Michael Warren's used car dealership, since they both shared a name. The car provided evidence of being the getaway vehicle. Investigators found orange fibers like the ones that would be found on a wig, as well as some strands of long chestnut hair, very similar to Sheila Keen's hair at the time. However, in 1990, DNA testing was not commonly used like today, since the advances in forensics were yet to come, so the evidence found wasn't enough to build a case against Sheila. Her possible link to buying the costume and the flowers only proved she'd purchased them, but not that she was the one wearing them when Marlene was killed. In fact, Marlene's own son said the shooter seemed to be a man, standing taller and heavier than Sheila was. The confusion in the evidence didn't grant a warrant to arrest Sheila, so slowly, the case grew colder and Marlene's story was left unfinished. In 1994, Michael Warren was sent to prison. However, it had nothing to do with Marlene's death. For years, Michael had been tampering with odometers in the used cars he sold, as well as stealing cars to sell them in his dealership. Police caught on to him, and he was convicted for the multiple frauds and illegal practices. He spent 3 years in jail and was then released early in 1997. When he got out, there was someone waiting for him: Sheila Keen. However, after 1997, the couple seemed to fall from the face of the earth, and nobody heard from them again until 2017. In 2017, investigators came across new information. 800 miles away from Wellington, there was a town called Abingdon, located in Virginia, and in this town lived a married couple, Mike and Debbie Warren, loved by neighbors and clients of their restaurant. However, the couple wasn't originally from Abingdon. They were from Florida. And indeed, Debbie Warren was actually Sheila Keen. Her first name she changed for unknown reasons, but her last name she changed when she married Mike Warren, the man she was having an affair with when his wife was shot to death. In 2002, Sheila and Mike fled to Virginia and got married. Despite denying they were ever involved with each other, the two had been together as soon as Michael was released from prison. They bought a house in the small town of Abingdon and started their life together as Mike and Debbie, a loving couple known for being friendly neighbors and hardworking. The two opened a restaurant nearby and had a great relationship with their customers. After years of hard work, the couple was retiring and were seeking the peace and quiet of small-town living. They built a house and they got along with their neighbors, but nobody knew about their past. When investigators discovered Mike and Debbie were in fact Michael Warren and Sheila Keen, the cold case took a turn. So the two were in fact involved, and the motive now seemed to be taking shape. This would tie in with DNA evidence, which had been analyzed once again in 2014, after investigators received a grant to work on cold cases. Evidence regarding DNA had been linked to Sheila, and there was finally enough to arrest her and build a case against her. In 2017, the arrest warrant was finally approved, and the Virginia police was informed to arrest Debbie Warren, also known as Sheila. The Warrens were followed home, and Sheila was arrested just before they arrived at their house on the side of the road. She was being charged with first-degree murder for the mysterious shooting which happened 27 years earlier. But far from being over, as of today, this case is still open. Sheila pleaded not guilty, but her trial has been delayed 6 times in the past 5 years. The defense is struggling to find witnesses that will testify in favor of Sheila, since many of them have either passed away or cannot remember enough details to cooperate in a 30-year-old case. Between COVID delays and the defense's struggles, Sheila Keen-Warren's trial was last delayed again in May of 2022 and won't seem to be resuming until next year. Until the trial begins, we won't know exactly what DNA is linked to Sheila and how investigators crack the case. But for now, it seems like we'll have to wait at least another year to discover if Sheila will be found guilty or not. In the meantime, Sheila remains in prison after being denied bond last year.